Running fans, jumping fans, stowing fans, all around athletics fans. Welcome to Talking in Ovals. How's everybody doing out there on this Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, episode number 139. I'm Alex Hyatt. What's going on, brother?
I can't believe it's May 13th and I'm getting ready for state sectionals this Saturday. It's so quick, man. It happens so fast, but good luck to everybody out there running in the New Jersey state sectionals this week and everybody else running everywhere, man. It's that time of a year where you just have to be excited on the pro, college, and high school level. It's about to get fun.
It's crazy. In high school, outdoor felt so much longer than it actually is. I think the dual meets made it feel longer, and now that duels are kind of done away with and it's all invites, I feel like the actual speed goes in. But dual meets, I feel like, made it feel longer, but it felt so much longer. Indoors, the long season.
Indoors, very long. Yeah.
Indoors, long. Outdoors, like pretty quick. It's quick. But no, definitely good luck to everyone starting states and, around the country. There's other places that are into their states and stuff like that. So it's exciting to see how, obviously you and I are both big Jersey guys, and it's always fun to see how Jersey stacks up against everyone else when it comes down to it, and always ends up being pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie. But last week we had a good time. We had John Davern on the show, content creator over at FlowTrack. One of my good friends, one of your former athletes, and definitely a friend now. He's doing so many good things over at FlowTrack. Gave us a nice behind the scenes look. I think something that we really haven't gotten on the show yet.
No, it was good.
Yeah, it was lots of fun. Before we bring in our guest, I want to thank everyone for wherever they're watching from, whether it's Facebook, X, YouTube. We appreciate it all. And if you are watching from there, make sure you follow, subscribe, share the show, spread this word of mouth. And if you are listening to this later via podcast form, again, thank you very much. 5 stars is the only number I want you to give. If you're considering giving anything else, just refrain and make sure that you leave a comment, because that always helps. And again, word of mouth, that is the biggest way. Let everyone know we are the best track and field podcast on the freaking planet. And we're live, typically Mondays, but we try to get in at least once a week. We are live. So I want to bring in our guest.
Let's do it.
Hi, it has been rare on this show that we have had a guest that has had ties to both of us.
Yeah.
Typically it's like one of your good friends coming on, one of my like former teammates or things like that too. But I think outside of maybe like Griff, I don't think we've had many that have had like ties to directly both of us.
We had on Cassandra.
Cassandra is another one, but
mostly Manchester ties.
Mostly Manchester ties. This one's a little different. It's only pseudo Manchester, right? Like this is Manchester adjacent for both of us in a way, right? Like, and yours competitive, mine through a coach I had. But let's bring him in. He is Jayson Resch. He is the director of cross country and track and field and head cross country men's track and field coach over at Stockton University. That is a mouthful. What's going on, coach?
What's up? How are you guys?
We are doing well, and you are someone, you've been hard for us to wrangle on this show. I remember when we were first in our infancy, we tried to get you on Instagram, and you're like, yeah, not really my thing. I know someone from Brooks, go there. And I think it was kind of like, I don't know what the hell these guys are doing. I don't want to get involved with that weird thing.
I got to say, he would text me quite a bit early on and say, hey, guys, I am listening. You guys are doing awesome stuff.
I know. We appreciate it.
Great job. So, I mean, he was always there. He was just doing his own thing.
Yeah, I like to be in the shadows. I don't like to. This isn't what I like to do.
But at
I want nobody to know where I am or what I'm up to. Okay,
we've harassed you enough. We've harassed you enough to finally get you on here.
Yeah, I was out recruiting Saturday, and he wrote this text. I was like, "Fine, I'm in. Like, let's do it. Whatever. Let's get."
I was like, "I got him. I finally got him."
And then he's like,
I broke him down.
And I'm like, "I'm not available. I'm at a meet."
I'm like, "How about Tuesday?" He's like, all right." Like,
sure.
Because I would have been like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, we would have just kept going. But like I said, we're excited to have you on. Basically, like I'll explain our ties here. So Jason's dad, Tom Resch, was my coach over at Manchester, and he helped coach me through some of my most successful years. He was really good, and much more of an old school and different style, even though we had old school coaches. Like Coach Scheffler was very much an old school style coach, but it was different in the fact that, Coach Resch, Jay's dad, had a lot of experience and was very successful. And the
And was still
only
running,
guy that
was cool.
I knew that was breaking 20 consistently. And I remember I was there for his 60th birthday when he broke 20 at 60 in the 5K. And I'm like, wait, excuse me? Like, we all realized, we're like, Coach Resch was no joke. Like, we knew at that moment, like, he was a pretty good runner. And he even said, he's like, I really didn't pick it up until later. Like, I wasn't.
You know who ran with us that day?
Who ran with you guys?
Paz. He was there too.
Where's
Oh,
Paz?
Paz was there?
Yep.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, Paz, God. We got to have Paz on the show. He's out of his
Yeah.
mind. He's one of my best friends. But, yeah, no, so that's our tie. Hyatt, what is your tie to coach over here?
My tie is not as pleasant of a one, I would think.
No, it wasn't enjoyable at all. No.
He was one of my opponents all through high school. I mean, he couldn't beat me at one school, so he decided to go to another one. Still came up short, but I digress.
Great. This is a great start.
Not adversarial at all.
We might all be fired by the end of this, as long as everything goes well.
I just remember Jay being a super competitive person to go against at Lacey and then later on at Pinelands, and his teams at Pinelands were no joke. I remember in cross country, it was the first time ever we were actually talking prior to the podcast where you had the best teams in Ocean County were from B South in track and in cross country, and it kind of wasn't even close then. So it was a cool time to have the smaller schools kind of take charge, because Tom's River South, where I went, we were in B South for 2 years and never lost. So then they made us go back up to A South.
Yeah. I mean, you got to stop bullying us small people in Manchester. Okay, get out of here, Tom's River. Go away. One of our other former guests, Coach Pinto over there at North, saying Paz is my right center fielder in Sunday morning softball. That is awesome. I hope that he shanks everything.
Well, Coach Resch coached Coach Pinto to break Resch's school record. He trained Pinto to beat his own record.
Pinto took down my school record in the 800, his last college race ever. So
that's quite the moment to do it in the last college race. It's always a storybook on the track.
Now just to see what he's doing as a coach is unbelievable. So,
I mean, North just keeps on trucking, man.
So.
One of my favorite things, and Coach Pinto hasn't been doing this as much. I'm going to call you out. Keep sending us stuff, Coach Pinto. He hasn't been DMing us as much, all things, but just crossing through. I follow obviously North things, and just every single week, every single meet, it's highlight, and credit to the coaches over there. Credit to the boys over there. Not taking the
And the girls team had a very good meet too at those counties.
Really good meet too. Yeah, so. They're just doing their thing at North Bay. They know we're big fans of theirs over there. Even Dave being a South guy, we're still big fans.
Credit where credit is due.
Definitely.
Dave, he's got a team of Freddie Sharps. That's what I said.
Yeah, man. Oh, listen.
Freddie Sharps, 19.
I don't care when it says that's the greatest athlete that I've ever seen in the state of New Jersey track and field. Yeah. He went and ran 4:15 meter champs, and then I think he won like the 200, the 800.
He won the 400 hurdles. Won the 800, and he was third in the mile in 1997.
Running 4:15, third. That was his third event.
He never took off to the Superflies. He just kept wearing the Superflies the whole time.
I don't know. You know what? Him or Royce Reed was another one.
Yeah, that was my senior year.
He won meter champs, I think, in the 200 and the javelin.
Four jab. Yeah,
it was unreal.
Hurdles. Yeah.
It's weird. Like, I couldn't imagine.
Guys were so good, man. Those Bridgeton guys.
Wilkes.
Wilkes and Gordon.
With the times kids are putting down today, though, in high school and things like that, I couldn't imagine something like that going on right now in like such different sectors of the track. Like, it's such a different thing. But before, Coach, we're going to get into you soon. But before we do that, we always like to have people share their PRs with us. And we're going to be hounding you for that too, Coach, because as your incredible Stockton athletes continue to tear it up, and I just love your dad constantly throwing things up there on Facebook about how proud he is.
I'm not on Facebook.
No, he does it for you. He does it for you.
No, you are on Facebook.
Yeah.
Just not as you.
I mean, if you didn't know how proud your dad was of the work that you do there, just go on his Facebook for 5 minutes and you'll know, just like he eats, sleeps, and breathes Stockton now. But we always love to give a shout out to those with the PRs. So we are jumping right in here. Our friends over at Red Arrow, Coach Tom Figueroa over here. He always gives us his PRs over at Edinburgh, I think is what it says. Edwardsburg, sorry. Edinburgh High School PR, the individuals he coaches there. Over at the Wolverine Conference Champs, May 9th. For the gentleman, ninth grader, Ethan Ferguson in the 16 ran a 4:51.56, getting faster over there. Riley Zilai, ninth grader, also ran a 4:52.95. That's always fun watching your athletes run together and PR together. And then a young lady, Jade Leith, ninth grader, ran a 5:59.16. So great job to all of them in the 16. Then in the 32, Riley Zilai doubles back, and he runs a 10:58.20. So not as many this week coming from us, but as always, thank you to Tom and shout out to everyone with the PRs. And I have to give one more over on my end over here because I had to give a shout out to my Marist Red Foxes because this week at the MAC meet, senior Amari Mathis went in, won outstanding performer of the meet by doubling and winning the 100 and 200, setting the school record in the 100. And then our ladies 4x8 team of Kayla Hawkins, Grace Fletcher, Sierra Fisher, and Parker O'Brien took first place. And that is no small feat in a conference that has Iona, a conference that has Ryder, Manhattan, a lot of proud, really good teams there. So really pumped for all them. A good second place finish for our gentlemen in the 4x8 as well. For Joe Logan, Sean Wilson, Joaquin Bell Andrade, and Miles Chamberlain, who are a sophomore, freshman. So really looking forward to what Marist can do in the future there. And shout out to my Foxes.
And they're getting a track.
We're getting a track, and we're also getting a stud from Westfield. So, we got a lot of things going good. Yeah, no, Marist is finally getting a track, Coach Resch.
Nice.
We're finally getting one. It should be done by this summer, and we're going to do a nice big entrance where all the alumni that want to be there can go do a walk around and stuff. But we're excited for that stuff. But
you better jog. You better not walk around it. You better jog.
I am going to drag my legs around there. I'm going to walk on a track and they're going to break in half. I haven't ran in so long. But, I don't know who this is, but Brian Perner, thank you for tuning in.
Brian Porter, ran for Lacey, worked for Deodora. Yeah, he was a stud.
My hero. Runner. I like it. Brian, you work for Deodora. Jump on the show. Come talk to us about shoes. Let's do it.
CEO for it. So we were college roommates and teammates at Lacey.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
He had a great post-high school running career.
Yeah.
Brian, shoot us a message. Let's do it. We want to have you on. We just like talking to anyone that runs. If you run, I don't care.
2:24 marathon.
Yeah, stud.
That is fantastic. Oh, and Coach Torchia coming in, giving us a PR over here. I love it. CBA all sophomore 4x4 team ran a 3:25 this week. That is fantastic. Great job.
Very
Coach
good
Torchia.
stuff.
And great job to all the athletes. Coach, if you throw their names in there, I'll give them shout outs as well. But Coach Resch, we're going to jump in you. We're going to get in the meat and potatoes of the episode here. Always our fun stuff. So, like we ask all of our first-time guests, especially the ones that were, runners, good runners like you were, when was the spark that made you want to be a runner? Not necessarily when you started running,
right,
but when was the spark that was like, I think I want to do this for a long time?
Yeah. So, despite me not coming on the show, I have listened to your show, so I know this. This is one of the reasons why I didn't want to come on here because I don't want to answer this question because it's complicated. I'll be honest.
We like complicated. We like
it.
I don't know. I feel like the spark comes now more than before. I'll be like, oh wow, I really love doing this. I'm so happy that I get to go out for a run. And then a day later, I'm like, why never leave the house today? What is happening? This clearly doesn't work. Is it saying I'm running 11-minute pace? Is that even possible?
That hurts the most when you go out on a run now. It's like sitting there and looking down at your watch and going, this is my life.
That data. I don't need it.
Yeah, it's like Boomer, leave the watch home next time.
Boomer Esiason was always right when he invented the word NARP, non-athletic regular person. It comes fast, man. It comes fast.
It does. So, you had Mike Benson on the show, right?
Yeah.
You remember that episode?
Great episode.
These are guys like Mike Benson would be in my living room training with my dad growing up, right? My dad got him through his first half marathon. I think the story behind that is Benson's like, oh, we'll run together. And then at 10 miles, my dad's just like, go, because he's Mike Benson. He just has different gears and he takes off, right? So like growing up, like I just grew up around it. There was runners. My dad would go out and run, in the morning and Sunday long runs, and we would go to road races. In the summer, we'd go to Lake Tackanassee. We would do.
I ran many races there. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the good old mile fun run, like.
Yep.
The worst, you have to like run past the clock, and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I gotta go around this lake, right? Tricked you every time. And I would go to Ocean Running Club, and that was kind of the lifestyle.
How much Shore AC gear did you get over the years with your dad being involved with Shore AC?
So it was definitely like when I was younger, more Ocean Running Club, and I can't speak on it, but I feel like that was a thing. And then he slowly like creeped over to Shore AC more. Like he got better, and then he was getting like Harry Nolan, right?
Harry Nolan was a legend.
Right. So then he
could probably still break 5 minutes.
Yeah, he did a DMR with him, and he had a Shore AC shirt. And I think like then we like started to creep over to the Shore AC side a little bit more. So I remember like one of the races was we would do Lakewood 5 mile. And there would be no one there. He would tell my mom, like, yeah, somebody's going to watch him. There's nobody watching me. He would just be like, the gun's going to go off, go run. And, like, I'm going to go run and win the race, and then I'll find you somewhere out there. And then, like, I would have a choice to, like, either, like, keep running or, like, stop. And I think I was, like, 10 years old, And, and now I have kids. I have an 11-year-old and 8-year-old, and I couldn't even imagine. Like,
now I understand his coaching style. Yeah, I get it more.
Exactly. I mean, that was it. And so, like, there was times I, like, actually did not love the sport, in ways. And he was never pressuring me, but it was just I went along for the ride. And then there was stuff that I absolutely loved. We went to Melrose games. We went to things, and I kind of fell in love with like the aspect of the sport outside of it. Yeah. Running became like I liked basketball more. I was a basketball player. That's what I wanted to be. I got cut in middle school. I finally made it freshman year of basketball, and I only think that's because my dad helped open Lacey High School, so he had hired all those guys before he went into being a vice principal and an administrator elsewhere.
Are you saying you didn't get there on your own merit?
No, I doubt it. I mean, I was like,
you're like, I got it from middle school, but now all of a sudden I got better.
Yeah, exactly. Like if we had like Dan Handeran, who's like one of the best in like shore history, like nobody needed me out there. I would have Porter actually, and like Eamon would come to basketball games from like indoor track practice with signs like "Just let them play," like starting cheers, just to get me in the game for 2 minutes. So,
and then you'd go stand in the corner in every possession and hope they'd give you a corner three.
Yeah, exactly. Like you were dribble or do anything because that wasn't going to go well. So I kind of figured like this, I have this other sport that I've had success in. So, my spark would be that like I obviously was always thrown in distance runner, right? And and it was actually like junior year, like Brian was busy in the school play. Porter was like, one of our top guys, and he was in Bye Bye Birdie. Eamon got play. Yeah, he was great. He did a great job. He was unbelievable, but he wasn't running, so he wasn't for us. And then Eamon got sick a little bit, so all of a sudden, like more was put on my plate, and I could ask for a little bit more. And I kept telling people I really think I could run like the 800 and potentially the 400. And they kept saying no. And then finally, against like I ran the 8 most of the way there. Do you remember what's his name from Freehold Borough? Also Jason. I'm forgetting his last name. He beat up on me in a dual meet in both the mile, the 800.
Jason Pettit?
Yeah, Pettit. Yeah. Just crushing my dreams in both of those. So it was finally at Tom's River South dual meet, and I was like, I think I can run the 400. And they're like, go out in lane 6, don't mess with anyone. And I ran pretty well there. And
you know what? That's such a similar story to Steve Geiger, who I went to high school with, who now coaches he now coaches at Lacey. He was all distance, and then they put him in a 4 once, and he was like, all right, you're gonna run the 4 and the 8, and they changed his name from Steve Geiger to Speed Geiger.
Nice. All right. And yeah, then at counties are like our senior year, Steve's and I, he ran 400 hurdles and stuff. He went
Yeah.
hurdles 8. So then I kind of transitioned over, and that's where, and then, they started to let me high jump and do some of the events that I really enjoyed. Like I remember as a kid, my dad got this stupid rubber band thing that I attached to my bed, and I would just like
Jump
keep
over it.
running and jumping over it, thinking I was a high jumper. Like that, those were the things I loved.
Right.
And I didn't not love distance running. And I honestly think, this is a little bit of revisionist history, right? Like I go to Lacey, and, one of the best runners in history out of the school, Eamon Blanchard's on my team.
Won the meet of champions.
Yeah, he won meet of champs in '94. I see how hard that guy works, right? Like, and I'm like, I don't really want to do that, I don't think. And then I see how hard my dad works. So I was like, all I want to do is try to beat that guy. And I really like kind of figured out where I belonged in the sport by that junior year.
And it's interesting too. It's like it's nothing to take away from like high school sprinters, but it's like you got to work hard as a distance runner to be good. The ones that work hard as sprinters are your great sprinters, right? Like when you can get your sprinters in high school to realize, yes, your God-given talent's going to take you far, right? It will if you have good God-given talent. But if you work, then there's a difference. Like we've had some of the best high school sprinters. Cordial Van is doing amazing things right now. Siani Wynn is a monster. But those two individuals, while they have God-given talent as sprinters, Cordial's one of the best jumpers in the country.
Same with Cole.
Same with Cole Kramer. They work their asses off too. So it's not like, and I wish I could just like shake all young sprinters and just be like, take practice seriously. Do everything coach says and then some, because you can be great. If you have God-given talent and you're running a 10.8, you work hard, you can get to a 10.5. Like you can get there. So it is great. Coach Pick coming in. I love it. Robert Picton, another great guest. Keep running, boys. Just a thought. Ocean County Championships are Monday at Southern
the middle school meet. They got they were supposed to be today, but they got postponed to Monday down at Southern.
Because we're going to get rained on the rest of our lives of this little cycle coming on. But
I'm working hard. I mean, like I just, the distance running, I go out for runs and I enjoy that. And I probably trained more like a miler, 2-miler throughout my career, even in college. Yeah. I mean, I definitely ran distance and would do that, but I enjoyed the weight room. I enjoyed some of the other aspects of it, like that was what kind of, like whether it was high jump practice or just running fast, like that's what I wanted to do. That's what I was drawn towards. And I really thought I could be effective there, and that was the challenge.
So we need a sidebar here because we have a comment from Buds and Bape.
I don't even know. I know who that is. So.
Jay also excelled in the flying headlock. If there's a story here that's appropriate, maybe. If not, we'll move on.
It's fine. It's at Pineland. So I come in as a transfer, right? And and we have an interesting group. And if there's anything, we talk a lot about times and what people do, and and just so like how we were motivated, right? And so and this is probably a decent transition, like how do I end up at Pinelands? My parents were gonna move. My dad's superintendent at this point of Eagleswood Elementary, which is in district, right?
Yeah.
So the house was going to be for sale. I probably could have rode out senior year at Lacey, but
Pinelands had a better team.
The culture, and it was about the culture. Like, I mean, Bill Bruno was bigger than life.
Great, he was great, man.
Incredible.
He brought a certain mentality to it, and he didn't mind us mixing it up. So the flying headlock comes in because I probably fought with Scott. I think he punched me at one point. I definitely fought. That's Fulkowski, I'm sure, chiming in with that. So I would wrestle quite a bit. It would happen sometimes in workouts. I also have this weird thing where I'm only 5'8", but my wingspan, like you can't, I don't know if you can see this thing. It's crazy.
It's pretty long, yeah.
And I wear a size 12 shoe. So we'd be doing repeats and my hands would hit them by accident, I promise. And then the next thing you know, there's words being said.
Well, I mean, you're the new guy.
Straight to the flying headlock. Like I don't even mess around. Like I
mean, but here's the like, how does Pinelands get all these transfers at that time?
I mean, I don't know.
He said it before,
Yeah,
Coach Bruno. Coach
transfer,
Bruno just being there, probably.
Him and
transfer
Falkowski.
portal, the
Transfer portal, NIL
yeah,
promises.
I mean, you get Falkowski. I'm like, I mean,
Volkowski's dad worked in the school, so.
I
That
mean,
makes
could
sense.
it be because Pinelands had a good team? And it was like,
Oh yeah, there was a structure. There was,
Listen, that's very rich coming from a Tom's River person where we know that the best school gets
listen,
all of them for
I
at
went
one
to
point.
school
Okay.
exactly where I lived.
You're the rare
What
one
can
that
I
went
say?
to school exactly where you lived in
Exactly
Tom's
where
River,
I
okay?
lived.
It's rich coming from a Tom's
No,
River guy
listen, man,
talking about how do you get the transfers.
I got to say though, those Pinelands teams were, man, did we not at Over South? We did not like you guys one bit. But it was looking back, it was out of respect. Like we knew that you guys, like one of my favorite memories in high school is we're at the Penn Relays. It had to be your senior year. It was Chris Greer and Steve Geiger's senior year.
Yeah.
So your year, right? So you guys go and you guys run like 8:06 or 8:05 at Penn, and we're like 2 heats later. We're like, we haven't run that fast, yet the season. We go out and run like a second faster. I was like, yes. Like, it was like, but like you guys motivated us to work as hard because, like I said, like what a time where the small schools were just taking over Ocean County. It was such a fun time, especially now to look back on. And you at Lacey and the Pilots were a huge part of that. I mean, we had some battles with you guys. I remember you guys coming in. You probably weren't there yet at Ocean County College for a cross country meet. It was just it was awesome. Like the atmosphere, the atmosphere for that dual meet was just great.
I was at Lacey junior year, and we went over there, and I got strep throat, and I went to the bus, and George Morgan was like, you can't go. Like, look at you, you look awful. And I really wanted to go because and there was always stories about what you guys would do in the woods at Ocean County College. Like there was always these stories.
Strictly competitive.
I want to go and get in the mix, And Eamon was always ready to fight.
And just throwing a headlock in there.
No.
We'd have Coach throwing a headlock to a South kid.
Listen. If there was one kid you didn't look at or say anything to, it was Eamon Blanchard, man.
I know. He was tough.
He was just this hard nosed. Like I don't think he talked to anybody.
No, sometimes he didn't talk to us, and we were his best friends.
I lived in the same house with him up at Rutgers, and
yeah.
I don't think I said 3 words to him.
No, he was
in his room. Like I remember like hearing stories.
He rode his bike all summer, and that's what I mean. Like I just was in a different mindset, right? Like I'm a 16-year-old kid. He would ride his bike all summer to the high school every morning, and then he would go out and run. Like he would sleep over my house and go out for runs with my dad. Like that's my dad basically was training with him and running and and doing that, and that was he was just super committed to it, and the hard work paid off. And I mean I remember the exact moment when like he had a spark. It was sophomore year, when we used to flip-flop short conference between Homedale and Ocean County Park, and we were at Homedale and he got his butt kicked, and he was just like, I'm never letting that happen again. I was like, okay. And then he just went on a tear. And one of my favorite memories, we'd go to CBA, we'd go to Colt cross country camp, and his senior year, he's like, I'm going to crush like the final run. Like that was what he get geared up for all summer long. And sure enough, he went out there and did that. But, I think one of the draws to answer that question, like to Pinelands, was the culture and what Bill Bruno built. But it was those opportunities too. Like, I would see that they like Pinelands and you guys were going to, going to Penn relays or going to, these meets indoors. I mean,
which was a lot more rare.
West Point.
Now a lot of people go to Penn relays and things like that.
Hall, the Seton Hall Fast Time. Like my coach would find. I mean, at that point, tracks weren't banked, but he would go at. He didn't care if we had to take a bus 3 hours. We were going to West Point Super Bowl weekend. That's where we would qualify and run sub 8:15. Every single winner was at West Point.
But all these big meets didn't nationals wasn't as big as it is now. It seems like every high schooler goes to nationals.
Correct.
Every high schooler goes to Penn relays. Like it was Manchester. We really didn't go unless we had a stud team.
Right.
We weren't going to Penn relays just to get the experience.
No, but I mean,
it's such a different environment now in just all around the track landscape, right? Like everyone goes to Valentine's in the college. Everyone goes to Terriers. And that was like a very different thing as well. Like you used to go there if you were going to be. So it's a very,
they didn't have
we'll
as many
talk
tracks.
about this too, but it's
You know,
Yeah. I'm just saying in terms of the big meets, the selectivity was much more in the
our
big
county intra-conference meet. We're at Red Bank.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I know.
Which
I know.
I didn't go, but
Oh my God.
Yeah, you weren't allowed. You guys
well,
were-
no, we were allowed, but my coach was like, "Nope, we ain't going back."
The memories of sitting there and going to Red Bank and going, okay, I'm gonna run 5 minutes and it's gonna be really
But
fast.
just-
Like it's a 440 everywhere
just-
else.
just-
But
How about this?
indoor-
Chris Greer wins meet of champs twice, right? Was never an indoor county champion.
Yeah,
Was never a true conference indoor champion because
Right,
we didn't
right.
go.
People talk mess about the bubble. Man, the bubble is such a breath of
bubble
fresh air
for-
compared to
Yeah.
what we had.
Oh
And
my
even when they
God,
had the
man.
Jersey City Armory, they opened it up for that. And the Jersey City Armory
On the wood
sucked,
floor?
too. Well,
Wood
no,
floor?
they put a really
Oh.
crappy rubber track. It was like the fake synth track that they threw up there, and then you're stuck in the friggin' rafters at the Armory. There is no really good seating. Jersey City Armory sucked. I hate that they
So-
opened it up, but sorry, my
Coach,
my sidebar.
really, really quick, just to kind of give the audience like that time in Ocean County, man, for distance running. I mean, we had Blanchard, we had my teammates had you had Scott Muyo. Just before that, you had Rich Morris, you had Terrence Fagan. Like that was a great time in Ocean County for distance running. It was.
Yeah, I mean, Terrence Fagan's 15, 18 at counties lives up, and I remember standing there that day, and I mean, it's now
It was another one that I was definitely afraid of.
Flowing, and he just went out. If you remember, he just figured out that course way before his time, right? Like he just was like, I'm gonna go hard, and he just went to that backstop hard. And I remember my dad and everyone being like, "What is he doing?"
Yeah, but he held on.
But those guys, like Coach Bruno, and obviously I heard your episode, talking about Conover and O'Leary and those crew. They were culture builders, and and I think what Bruno kind of knew the talent level he had and the people he had, and what he did an amazing job of was rallying us around that relay, right? So cross country, I was a disaster. I'm gonna be honest, I was pretty much a disaster and uncoachable the majority of my career, which makes it real weird that I'm a coach. I don't like authority, which makes it really weird that I was in the Army for 6 years, right? As an Army officer. We had a lot of
the one thing that you notice is you became a coach, right? You became an Army officer. You quickly got out of the positions of wanting to be told what to do, and that started to tell everyone.
The authority.
Yeah. He just, I remember so at counties, my senior in cross, I was our third guy. I was top 25, whatever. And we lost to you guys by 45 points or something.
Probably
ridiculous for second. You scored probably 54 points.
I think we had 53, I think.
Yeah. And we scored 90 or whatever.
You guys gave it a valiant effort, man. Very, very, very.
Thanks. Oh, man. This
what's funny though?
I'll do a flying headlock through it.
No, but I just love that we still remember these things.
Oh, I know. Well,
and that it still irks us. If I was you and the opposite, I'd be irked. I'd be like, ugh.
Yeah.
No, we've had a few episodes with some of the people you had on, Dave, that you're friends with now, but you were competitive, and you're like,
Scotty Clayton,
I could never beat you, and it is fun for me on the outside looking in here, just watching you guys and reminisce, and we had Ian Hahn on after a while, and he was a little after you guys, but then he was able to talk mess.
He was a sophomore when I was a senior.
Yeah,
so I mean, he came a little.
I remember him as freshman year.
Yeah, he was
coming on.
Ended up being obviously a monster. He's the best. I still think he's the best distance runner to come out of Manchester. We've had some amazing guys, especially recently. But I mean, Ian running a friggin' 412 indoor is probably still one of the most ridiculous things that Manchester has ever done in terms of. So let's jump down memory lane here with you. What are some of your favorite memories as a runner? And, start off, wherever you want early on, and then take us all the way through college, because you had a hell of a college career too.
Yeah, I mean, I think high school, that senior year, those guys are still guys, I'm texting all the time that track season. What I was kind of getting at was I came off cross country, and I ended cross country really poorly that senior year. And I remember, Bruno being the guy right there in my face afterwards saying don't worry about this, we have track, let's get focused, let's get ready to go, and he created those other opportunities, would throw me on high jump relay. He was like, we're going to run 400s, threw me on a 4x2. I think like the memory of being with those guys and Curtis and, Scott and Brian and that crew, along with like the guys, I'm still best friends with Brian Porter. We talk, every week, like just being with those guys doing, day-to-day runs and all the other nonsense that's associated with that. Right. Those are the memories. That's what I tell people it's about. I don't want to kind of get philosophical here, but the sport is awesome right now, and I've never seen anything like it in terms of what people are running. And sometimes people start chasing, and you have transfer portal, and you have these things that go on. Yeah. But what I don't want to get lost in that, it's great to get these performances, but it's also about the connections you make and like the lifelong friendships and just the stories that you share. So, I think like if I zoomed it in onto what I accomplished in track, like my senior year, I decided to mess up the trials of the 400 at Ocean County Champs. So, I know we're going to pick on, Scott Clayton going to junior prom. We've already kind of hinted at that.
And we ripped Scott Clayton on the show for doing that. Okay. We did that. But it's not a behind his back thing here. We did it to him.
I know we've talked, but there were some factors leading into that, right? Like, so I don't know if we knew some of the places people were going to get. And I'm sure I was one of those guys, right? It's like, I screw up the trials. I run 52, whatever in the trials. I'm not even in. So back then, you came back 2 days later for finals in the 400, and I'm in like the unseeded section of that four because it was 6-lane track, right?
Yep.
Now, what happened was Jamie Heckel also didn't run well, and he was really fast for Point
Borough, right?
Yeah, for Point Borough. So Kowinski decided not to run the 8 because he was gearing up for Golden West and some other stuff. So he was running the 4. So everyone knew he was going to run 48 and win the 400. But Heckel and I in the unseeded heat put together a nice race.
I remember.
And I remember walking over to the award stand and Seaver from Mondon thought he got second. And me and Heckel walk over and we like kind of bumped him out. Like I ended up second in the 4. And I think Jamie was third or fourth. And that was like a big, that was kind of a big moment. To kind of justify that, hey, I went there my senior year. Bruno put a lot of faith in me. Definitely kind of got the confidence, into me so I knew I could compete at that level. So that was the first time. And then, when I got over to college, it was a roller coaster ride. I'm be honest. Like I had no intention of running in college. I didn't even know if I wanted to go to college. I got accepted to schools. My parents are both educators. My mom's also the technology coordinator of schools. She's retired now, but my dad was superintendent. I wanted to kind of go in the military. Really didn't want to go to school. Decided to come to Stockton last minute. And, Dave Pfeiffer, who works with me now as one of our head officials, he was like, just come on out for the team. And I quit on him over winter break, like a classic freshman move, right? Like quit winter break. And January 5th, I signed up for the Army Reserves, right? So then I came back in for spring semester. I was like, man, I'm going away to the Army Reserves. I'm not like, I have no interest in running. He's like, okay. And it was like February and somebody got hurt. And he's like, we got a relay going to Boston. He's like, we could use you. And I was like, all right, this is 95, right? 96, way less rules. Now I can never get away with this stuff.
Yeah, no shot.
Yeah, so I go, well, I've never been to Boston, so okay. I get back in the mix. I start training with them, and I run like a couple 2 flats, and I never broken 2. Like I'd always run the 8 on doubles. That was some, I'd always kind of go 4-8, so I was always a little beat up for it.
Yeah,
definitely. And we were going up to Lincoln. He's like, listen, you're just going to go run with that guy, and you're going to run like 157 today. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I pop a 156 and like kind of like a last chance meet in May. And I was like, oh man, like I actually might be able to do this a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
And I was like, but now I'm signed up for the Army, so I got to go away this summer. So when I came back sophomore year, Pfeiffer left, and we got Preston in, and that was a whole nother shaky year. I was more removed from the team 2 times, from different things. Might have started a mini brawl up at an indoor meet in Southern Connecticut. I don't know.
I can never see you doing that, Coach.
Do you ever run in Southern Connecticut? You like run behind a wall and you disappear, so a lot of things happen. So then I like junior year is when I kind of really like locked in and committed, and I ran on like a double at conference meet. I ran like 48-1 and beat like Rich Dixon, who was defending national champ in the 4 from Rowan.
Yeah.
I never would beat him again, and he would beat me at nationals, but I got him that day. So
that's all that matters.
Came back in the 8 and ran the 154 on a double in the 8. So I,
that's a hell of a double.
That was kind of the spark, and for the college to get focused in going into my senior year. But unfortunately, senior year, I kind of got sick in the fall. I got bit by a tick, had lines or whatever was going on back then. So then that's when I really just focused in on like 200, 400 type work and transitioned over. And, honestly, a little bit of this goes back to my high school career. I really struggled in big races, just being kind of open about that. I talked to my team about it. Like, I would struggle at groups, I would struggle at my first 2 national meets. I just wouldn't be able to put it together mentally. So going into that senior year, I went to indoor nationals. I'd come off of winning like ECACs, and I was ranked like top 5 and thought I was ready to go. And I got out to indoor nationals, warmed up for forever, got into my own head. And, 52, I tell the team this all the time, 52-1-3 can guarantee you last place at an indoor national meet. So, that's what I ran. And, and I went into that outdoor season with like a whole different mindset. I knew I had to like change. I actually had to let go. Like I ran with anger. I ran with like, hey, I have a chip on my shoulder, and I had to go in trying to figure out like, more of the tactics of it and how to run it properly. And, that crew, that 4x4 that I was telling you about, that we ran 316. So it was me and Curtis, who were high school teammates. Curtis was a stud hurdler. He won Ocean County Championships our senior year in both. And then out of Manchester, we had 2 guys, Garrett Conover, who was a freshman, and Billy Haspel. And
Billy was good too.
And Haspel was a pain in my ass, man. And he pushed me every day. Like he just would not. He was relentless in workouts, and
that's what Manchester kids are.
With that Conover, and we had the Bruno mentality, and that's what it was about. You're going to sharpen each other and you're going to get better. And
especially at that time, the Manchester groups, they were coming off sky high, being the best team in the state. One of the nation's best teams at that point. They were that good. So you had guys coming there going, hey, I'm one of the best teams in the history of the state. So there's definitely that chip, especially going into a state school as well.
The 4B South guys to run 316, and they just carried me through it. And we ended up winning like a Penn Relays plaque because we won our heat. We were in the old CTC heat, and we just gained momentum. And they really just kept me honest that outdoor season. And then I went to nationals, finally put it together, and dropped 47 in the prelims, and finally made a finals. My dad didn't even come out until he knew I was making finals, and he had to scramble. We were out in Baldwin Wallace, Ohio, and he had to scramble to get out there for the finals. So, so it was a lot of trial, tribulation to get there, but it was the people that I was surrounded with that made it truly special, and those are the guys I talked to. And,
absolutely.
Like I said, when you put not every event group gets this benefit, but I was listening to the Davern piece, and I was actually listening yesterday a little bit, and like relays are fun, man. It's like some way they could figure out some relays, because when you put a baton in people's hands, magic happens. Right? Like so, last night our women's relay ran 3:47:50.
Ooh.
Okay.
Wow.
So it's a 6-second school record.
That's awesome.
Some ranked 15th right now. They take 16 teams. So we're not sure if they're going to get in with it because there's 2 more days of racing. We're going to see what happens.
Hopefully they get it.
last year 3:49.25 got in, but
All right.
this magic like they ran 3:47. I can't believe they put 3:47 together, but
That's so
that's what
much fun to
happens when
watch.
it's on and when you're with your teammates, you find a way to do something for the people around you. So
I want to make sure I get to this comment real quick. Zach Kennedy, thanks for watching, Zach. We appreciate it. Jumps in saying Ian is definitely the best school record in the 800 to 3,200 for 25 years. Yeah. I mean, he was a monster. So absolutely. So that gets me into a good spot because you talk about your team recently just being a monster, running 347. And you've been coaching for a while now over at Stockton. Have you seen a jump in competition like we've seen the last few years ever in your career? Like these last 5 years, I want to say maybe the last three, the level of speed, throwing, jumping from all levels, not just D1, D2, D3, NAIA, everything, high school has just
Skyrocket.
boomed.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen anything like this in this short period of time, like in any point in your career, how it's just jumped?
yeah, so I mean, I talk about it a lot with some of my other coaching friends. I was just on the phone with Dan Caulfield, who's the coach at Cal U, is one of my mentors, and
Yeah, yeah.
who kind of got me started in college coaching out at Clarion. So yeah, it's been 19 years college coaching, 13 years here. Um, but I was telling Dave right beforehand, like our school record in the men's 4x4 here is 3:10.99, and it's from 1980.
Yep.
So there's been like periods of time where people are running fast times and big performance. Like we had a discus thrower, Mike Melky. This guy was a monster. So we would go to facilities still. As of like 6 years ago, we went down to Delaware, and he still had the facility record there.
That's awesome.
Paul Klemick, was
man.
state champion. He has our school record in the long jump, 25-foot long jumper.
You get high jump too.
But it's the depth of it.
Yes.
That's what's just.
You always had your outliers doing great things.
Right.
Now it's like
everybody.
Now it's just a whole
Yeah.
crew. So like just what it's gonna take to get to a national meet at all levels. Like we were talking for D2. The PSAC just had a great weekend. I was watching the PSAC results. I'm friends with a lot of those coaches, and some of the results coming out of the PSAC meet are like, wow, this is unreal. I'm like, they're not going to get to nationals with some of those performances.
Which
at a high
is
school meet
insane,
now.
right? Like,
and some of those performances are the best they've ever had in the history of the PSAC, and like they're not getting to nationals with
and
that.
PSAC is a deep conference.
Yeah, conference with pride. It's been around. A lot of teams, in there that have a really strong history with Shippensburg and now ESU coming in, and so it's just I mean, I think the depth of it, and some events have really taken off, and I just think it's a combination of so many factors. A lot of people have touched on it during the episodes you've had, whether it's the technology, improvement, the coaching, the knowledge that's out there. I do think I think Dave and I probably share in this, that maybe, our generation didn't do the best at taking care of ourselves. We kind of went hard at no matter what we were doing, so
yeah.
So I think there's a little different commitment level to it.
Oh man, I have kids now like eating salads. I didn't even
100%.
that wasn't even a thought. But like these are high school kids, But I was saying like Chris Greer, who went to my school, won meet of champions indoor in 4:28. Right. I just had a kid on my team, ran a great race, ran a 4:20. It was 9th in Monmouth County. Like it baffles my mind how crazy everything is now.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think the difference is too, it's like your great kids always hammered. It didn't matter what time it was. Your great high school kids always ran hard. But the difference was back then, even when I was still there, everyone did that. And it was like certain kids needed certain things to unlock that potential.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're seeing now is your top kids are still hammering. They're still running hard. Maybe they're a little smarter about the way they eat, the way they sleep. They don't go to parties as much as we do.
Right. No.
It's like they realize like, hey, I got to sacrifice to be great, where you had your few that did that, right? But for the most part, hey, conference meet, we had the conference party in college. Like that was just thing. It didn't matter who did. If you were going to nationals, that didn't matter. Everyone showed up. And now it's a different mentality where everyone expects those top kids not to come because they got work to do. You know what I
Listen,
mean? It's very different.
If Scott Clayton was in school now, he wouldn't have gone to his prom.
Right.
Yeah.
It would be
No.
different.
Because
Well,
that's the mindset.
I also think the really
Just had
good
to throw that in there.
have gotten good at, how they select, and people have gotten better at organizing the races and what goes on.
You have all these meets now that are intended to run fast. So
Right.
like all these miles meets. And Alex doesn't want to hear it, but the lack of dual meets really helps kids run faster. It's less.
It doesn't teach them but they don't know how to race. They run fast, but none of them know how to race. A dual meet teaches you how to race. Because in a dual meet, you're running. If you're a top kid, I remember at my dual meets,
you're just racing.
I was running the mile, the 2 mile, and then I was getting ready to run the last leg of the 4x4 after that friggin' 2 mile, right before the 4x4. And it was like, okay, I needed to realize tactics. So, all right, I'm probably going to be able to win the mile, but they put their good 2 miler there. So I'm probably going to take second, but we got to come back and win the 4x4. So you learned how to race in dual meets. Kids don't know how to race anymore. They don't know how to race. They don't know strategy. They don't know
times now, though. Times are faster because these kids, there's more of maybe like a college mentality going on in high school, like resting more, racing once a week, it's just different, when we were in school, my coach had us hammering every day. Like every day was just hard,
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a different mentality, and we're seeing the fruits of it, right? We're seeing a lot of fast times, but then we're also seeing a lot of really weird championship races. We really are. We're seeing some times where they, like you said, they don't know how to race. Like Jakob Ingebrigtsen's a great example. Jakob's amazing. When you put Jakob in a situation to race, the racers beat him. Yep. But you put him in a situation to race, and the racers beat him. Josh Kerr, who's a better tactician, beats him. Cole Hocker, who's a kicker, beats him. So I think there's going to be a leveling out. Now, Coach, from your perspective with your athletes, has it gotten more difficult to coach them with all the technology, all the know-how, or has it gotten easier because they're kind of on the same page? What have you seen with that?
Yeah, I mean, technology is great and it can be your best friend, but it also can kind of ruin the situation, right? You're making comparisons to things. So it's just how you utilize that and how you kind of talk to them about it. There's definitely times where we might ask to take the watches off. They don't love that because they want the data points.
Yeah.
I personally don't spend as much time with the track actually. Like in my coaching, I'm more with our jumpers. Like that's where I kind of work the most at these days now with the coaching staff I have. I'm with like high jump and long jump and triple jump. That's where I spend the majority of my time. I still get over and I'm still kind of overseeing it and working with them and chiming in here and there. But yeah, I mean, I think sometimes it can be too much information. The challenge with them more, not everybody agrees with me on this, is that, I think, and I see this a little bit more in my own kids. I have my children, like I said earlier, 11 and 8, is, the specialization a little early on.
Yeah, I hate it.
I hate it so much.
Like we were definitely, I don't want to sound like we're the old guys here.
We are the old guys, though. No. I'm embracing being the old guy.
But we were climbing trees.
Jay and I are.
We were climbing trees. Yeah, we were like, we had this, like behind Porter's house, we had this game we play called the Jordan tree. So we'd find a pine tree that would allow us to like hold on to it and jump up as high as we could. We were doing plyometrics.
That's awesome.
Plyometric 101, right? I don't know like how many kids are out doing that. So they come a little bit more. You have to definitely watch too, because they can do things that are absolutely amazing, right? Like they can, whether it be a jumper or a runner, run a time, do something in a workout, do something in a competition setting, but they might not have the infrastructure. They might not have built those ligaments and all the supporting cast to be able to handle that time and time again. So that's where, I think that's another piece that doesn't get talked about enough, like how much.
Well, the multi-sport athlete is dead. you don't see as many multi-sport athletes anymore either. It's
Correct.
like
Yeah.
before, you
Right.
maybe would sit there and get, okay, my high jumper is also a basketball player. He
Yeah.
doesn't do indoor, but he's
Right.
a basketball player. So that motion of constantly jumping and moving and
Right.
using that, his legs to be explosive is
Sure.
there. Where instead now it's like, okay, I have a kid that just jumped 6 foot. All he's going to do is jump all year. I'm going to go find the
Right.
coach.
Right.
We're going to
Right.
get his form down. And now you get a kid that can only jump. And while they're athletes by the term, they're not full athletes, right? They're
Yeah.
not, the football player that is a basketball player and then becomes a sprinter brings a different level of toughness,
Sure.
right? They know how to be hit. They know how to jump. They know how to do all these things. And now they bring all that to the track where the specialization starts so early. And it's not just track, basketball, baseball. Like if your kid hits one home run in little league, it's like he's going to go to the MLB. It's like,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
let him go play soccer. Let him go do
Yeah.
something
Exactly.
else.
Let
Like
them play. Yep.
it drives me, the specialization. I think I love that you say that as a, especially a college coach. If you're listening, kids, if you like another sport, go pursue it. You got time to pursue the sport you're going to do in
Well,
college.
I'll get
You're
asked
going to
that.
do it.
Recruits will ask that do multiple sports now, and they'll be
Yeah.
like, "What do you think? Should I quit?" Especially if it's an 800 type runner, and
Sure.
I'm like, "I'm not going to tell you to quit soccer your senior
Keep playing
year.
soccer.
You
They
might
won't-
not be able to ever play that again." And one of the best
And if you're a
distance
midfielder,
runners that
absolutely.
I got to, kind of inherit from Caulfield when I was at Clarion University. Erin Richards, she just went into the Hall of Fame there last year. She ran 16:40 5K, like 34 20 something 10K. She was a soccer player who transitioned over to cross country just her senior year of high school. Was mainly 800 runner, and each year we kept creeping her higher and higher up. Like I remember we went to a 10K finally at Princeton, and the weather was bad and it kept getting delayed. It was 9:30 at night. She's like, "Am I going to do this?" I was like, "Yeah, we got to do it. Like we're here." And that's she dropped like a 35:20 was her first one ever, and we are like, "Nope, this is where it's going to be." And she ended up running 2012 Olympic trials in the marathon. She moved
awesome.
up to that level, but she had something left. And Jared, like the poster behind me, Jared, one of the things that made him unique was he was basketball and he was triple jump, long jump. He was one of our 2-time national champions in triple jump, but
Yeah.
we knew there was going to be a lot more there once he
Sure.
started committing to it a little later on. So, I love the aspect of having athletes become, part of track and field,
Yeah.
and sometimes we lose that, early on.
So,
We got Brian over here saying Jordan Tree forever. I had to throw that in there.
Coach, with with all these roster limits now coming on in college, do you find that you might be able to get athletes that maybe you wouldn't have approached in the past? And also, because of maybe this trickle down effect, do you feel that we are kind of not giving any spot or a place for the average to maybe good high school runner who wants to keep going? They might not
The
have
diamond in the rough too.
they might not have a spot now because kids with these roster limits, they're all getting pushed down to all different levels.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just speak on like in our world what I see for Stockton and a little bit of the NJAC. I think it's too early to tell how it's all going to be impacted, right? I could tell you I log in the transfer portal and it's 8 pages of track and field. It's a little bit crazy.
Wild.
And even within our own conference, right? Like the Jameer Brown, who's over at Rowan, set the D3 national record. He's going to leave and go to Syracuse. So there's a little bit of that too, right?
Sure.
Like there's people
Opposite way, yep.
being getting found at this level now. Like I think there's still going to be a place for everyone. It might be a little bit harder to make those rosters, but I think like that level is not as high as people may be predicting at this point in time.
Yeah.
I do think you'll see the first trickle down into, some of the smaller Division ones who aren't opting into the NIL, like that are not dealing with that. So they may see some of that talent come their way, along with Division Two. Once again, like I was saying, Division Two has become really competitive. So it might be continue to be harder to make nationals and things of that nature, but to still be, at the NJAC level, I think our conference is very good. I think the NJAC's very good. We've been sitting third. Ronan TC&J like are the standard bearers for the conference. TC&J women, you have won the last few. It was very close this year, but we still had event groups that need development. There were some event groups we didn't field more than 10 people, and some like women's pole vault only had 8, right? So there's still room for roster growth and roster development, and I think there'll still be a place, for those individuals. I mean, the truth of it is, the stats, and people talk about all the time. Less than 10% even go on to college to compete. Yeah. So there's automatically a washout there, along with some of the other things that go on once you get to school. What happens after freshman year is another drop off. Right? So
I guess,
I think there'll be a place. We have a place. If anybody's listening wants to reach out, we have a really good recruit class coming in. I mean, we're going to have about 50 total new athletes between men and women. It's one of our larger ones we've had in a while. We generally are in like the 30 to 40. But we do graduate quite a bit this next 2 years. So we're kind of gearing up for that.
I guess I was just thinking about that kid when like we were in school who ran like a 5 flat, but there was still like a place for them to go and to run and to compete and then to be part of a team. Like, are those kids now being forced where you have to go to like community college, or is there still going to be a place for
they need to look a little more JUCO? Like JUCO is obviously an option, but NAIA too, I think, is another. No one talks about the NAIA, and I think that's an important thing. I think that's going to be brought up more as the limits happen, and but I think those kids will still have a place. I really do.
Good.
We set our I set our recruit standards around 455 and all.
Okay.
I try to be pretty inclusive about what we do here. Now they might not get the same opportunities, right? Like that's where I try to have conversations, and that's one event group, right? So say like the 400, like our standards like 54, and I think that's a pretty modest standard for coming in.
100%.
It also shows that you won't get hurt and injured like in our fall conditioning starting out. Like you have a little bit that you can work with, but I take on people that may be below those standards as well if they have some kind of backing from a high school coach. And I think there's other programs, not just in the NJAC, but there's a lot of programs. The other piece of this, there's a lot of schools that are trying to increase enrollment right now, right? Like we have a whole nother thing that's going on in the country and in this area with an enrollment cliff coming up, right? Less 18-year-olds than ever, coming off of some years of the recession in 2008. Yeah. So, there's programs out there that are starting track and field. I know at Clarion, they're bringing men's track and field back. So,
which I'd love to hear.
To give a little plug out there, Ben Bevavino, he's the coach, and he was one of my athletes my first year when I was college coaching.
Nice.
He's the women's coach out there, and he, they're going to start men's track and field back up. So there's going to be other opportunities in some other places. It might not be your first choice, but that's the beauty of the system, right? Like maybe you can get to your first choice if you show that progress and development.
So do you find yourself now with because we talked about how the competition level has risen at every level, right? Especially in high school, we're seeing things that athletes doing, more than ever before. And New Jersey is one of the hotbeds for that. We have, we talk to Jim Lambert, after every season, and we have just so much to talk about. And we always talk about his diamonds in the rough. He always has some fun people that we could look out for. Do you find yourself over at Stockton looking at how everything's elevated and maybe going after some athletes that maybe you didn't know if you could get them before, but since now that pool, not even with the roster limits, but just with like Hyatt said, if you're running a 420, you're not even making it to meet a champs anymore. Like you're a really fast individual, but there's a good chance you don't make meet a champs depending on, where you're at, what section, what group you're in. So do you find yourself at times looking at this going, I think we can get that kid? Going after individuals maybe you wouldn't have gone after 4 or 5 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more me personally, just my own growth and development, just being here 12 years. I know a lot of people in the area now. Like I finally am at a point where I think we have a a group of coaches coach in high school that have competed for me.
You also have the results at your school too that you can point to some
Right.
of these top athletes and be like, hey, you can get to the level you want to get to coming here, which is nice, right?
Yeah, and we have, and in our conference, like TCNJ, like Justin at TCNJ and Mike Walker, they're doing a
Yeah.
great job
Yeah.
there. And then Dustin Dimmitt at Rowan's doing a great job, and Shed, who just got hired in there, will continue to grow that. And they're getting top level talent there. So
Yeah.
the rest of us are trying to catch up a little bit in the NJAC. So I think that also opens it up. Maxim, who was just NJAC track athlete of the year, right? He was he was a Meet of Champions winner, right? Like he won indoor Meet of Champs when he was at Robbinsville. I have Ahmad Fogg who transferred it. He was NJAC field athlete. He transferred in from Penn State. He was second at a Meet of Champions and
Yeah.
second at Balance Nationals in the long jump and top four and triple jump. So I think like we're I think a little bit more is on me personally. Like I think I've kind of improved.
Sure.
A couple years ago, Nick McDonough was coaching with me here. He did an amazing job. Some of the athletes who are really excelling in our program, like Kayla, who's the 800 runner, and Maddie B last night ran 4:33. Those were recruits that he brought in. And Kayla's run, 2:07 for us. And
Yeah.
he helped me, and I still talk to him all the time. We go to his meets all the time indoors. He really helped me kind of see like, hey, this is kind of how recruiting has to go. I think like I'm despite what people may believe, I'm a little bit more introverted than extroverted, and I think maybe I didn't take those swings early on, and I'm a little bit more willing. And I got more and more people that I know that I'm friends with. Like I'm friends with Sean McCafferty. Like we literally grew up
Coach
in
McCaffrey's
Bayville.
awesome.
We grew up in Bayville at the same time because that's where I originally started out. So I can reach out to people and kind of ask a
Sure.
little bit more, but a little bit still the same. What you're talking about, Alex, 100%. Like last night at Widener, the Lynchburg guys went 148, right?
Oh,
So when times like that are dropping into
crazy.
like it's going to take 150 to go to nationals and
Yeah.
in the 800, right? Guys are dropping 340s, right? Multiple guys under 14 minutes.
It's wild.
Yeah, so guys running 10 O's, right? 29, like Maxim ran 2098 at our conference meet. I think that opens people's eyes up too to Division III and where we're at right now.
And I always like to tell athletes, it's like, wherever division you go to, 1, 2, 3, NAIA, whatever, you're working. It's a job.
Yeah.
Like, and you're going to morning lifts, you're doing doubles, especially if you're a distance runner and things like that. Like the work stays the same. It's all serious. And when I was at Marist for a few years, we are small D1, right? We're not a major D1, but we're D1. And I would say to every single one of them, if your goal here isn't to be a national champion, then what are you doing? Like, as if it's realistic, not realistic, whatever, if you're not training to be a national champ at the college level, what are you doing there at that point? Like, this isn't just fun anymore. You're a grown man, you're a grown woman, go chase it, right? And I just think like I think it's being dispelled more and more and more, right? But there was always, I remember when I was growing up, like,
Yeah, to go D1.
gotta go D1, gotta go D1, gotta go. That was always the mentality, go D1. And it's like, no, you can go and be an incredible athlete somewhere else, at a smaller school where,
Yep.
the competitiveness is there. And if
Yep.
you look, like, I'm a psycho and I made a big chart that I want to pretty up, but I did a smorgasbord of the top 10 from all the nationals from D1, D2, D3, NAIA, and JUCO. And I put them together. And when you look at the chart, yes, your major D1s are taking up a brunt of that top spots. Sometimes you get your D2s and D3s
Sure.
to sneak into the top 8, top 10. But when you're looking down from the top 10, from D2 down, it is such a mix. You are getting performances from all different levels jumping in and being super competitive. So you know what? Yes, if you have the talent to go to Arkansas or LSU, go for it, right? Like that's a different level than anyone. But if you're not one of these like major D1 players, like explore your options. There are so many great schools to go to,
But yeah,
and Stockton being one of them. You have an
Go to a-
incredible program there.
Go to a place where you like the coach and the culture. That
Yes,
will,
have a good
because
relationship with your coach.
you can run fast anywhere. It's
Yeah,
all about
sure.
coach and culture.
and I think to lock into your goal setting, and I think you have to be realistic about what your life goals are as well. Like, what are you trying to accomplish?
Yes.
Very few that are going to be doing this for a career afterwards. So you have to have a realistic viewpoint on that. And what are you going for academically, and how does that match? So sometimes even within Division 3, there's a wide range of experiences, right?
Sure.
So coming from the PSAC, where schools were not close to each other, and
Yep.
and we were going to a conference meet 5 hours away, whereas in Division 3 in the NJAC specifically, like, we're going to travel and we're going to go places, but we don't have to travel 6 hours to our conference meet. It's not a 4-day give up on your finals and everything else going on because you're going to be on the road. Whereas if you're in some of these other, I think some of these other bigger conferences or Division 1 level, some of those schools, or even some of the D2s, we talk about it all the time, like some of the bigger Division 2 conferences that are spread out across states.
Yeah.
You're travel, like, you have a lot more overnight experiences that if that might not match the major, that might not match the lifestyle that you're looking for. So culturally has to fit, coaching has to fit, but also, like, what is it that you're trying to accomplish? And I think the biggest thing that I want athletes to walk away with is, like, you get a very small window of time to do this, for maybe 5 years if something goes
At
on,
best.
and you give yourself the best shot to see what you can accomplish during that time. You could still go on and do great things afterwards, but there's nothing like being on a team and being part of that shared experience, and seeing what you can accomplish in that small window of time that you're provided.
I want to share this real quick because I just went to my chart because I remembered something that I saw that was absolutely crazy. Let me see. So I think you'll enjoy this, coach. So let me see. Is it sharing? Boom. Okay. So right over here, if you notice, this is the 3K this
Okay.
past year, and I slammed them all together. And if you look, 1, 2, 3, the top 3 times, Division 2.
Yep, Adam.
And this is smashed together with D1. Again, the 5th time, D2. The D3, the top D3 guy was 18th on this list with an 807.
Okay.
It's nothing to sniff at, right? And then right underneath them, from Haverford, another D3, JUCO over there. Like, NAIA is not too far. So this is just kind of for me to show. And like I said, I'm a psycho coach, but just to show, like, you don't have to go into the bigger schools to mix it up. You can absolutely
Yeah, that
go to
wingate,
where
that
you're
wingate
comfortable.
program is crazy. I forget what I was just. We were looking at it before. It's like 6 guys under 14, like the 1405 guys, nothing, right? Like
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
crazy like that. So
Yeah. So you really can do a lot of great things everywhere. So
Absolutely.
I do want to ask you, you've generously given us over an hour of your time. We appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
How do you feel about the NIL? I know it's maybe not, it doesn't necessarily affect majority of colleges. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand. The NIL really affects really the top tier athletes in the major programs. Um, how do you feel about it in general? Just being a college coach, and obviously the transfer portal rule affects you guys, right? So, how have some of these
yeah, I
rule
mean the
changes
whole
affected you?
the whole system's just. I mean, it's just much different.
Yeah.
We're impacted on a very low level.
Yeah.
We don't have anything like that kind of going on here, and nothing that I have to worry about. I feel that what shouldn't get lost, right, is the educational part of this.
Yes.
Like, we, once again, unfortunately, in our sport, it's going to be a small percentage that continue to do this.
Sure.
So some people are getting the opportunity to get really good educations, that this is a platform, track and field sport in general, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's a lacrosse player, a field hockey player. The sport is what's providing this opportunity for a great educational experience and a great experience. If you're at that Division I level, traveling and doing things that maybe you just would not have had the opportunity to do. So that just hopefully doesn't get lost in some of the ideas of money and the financial piece of it. But at the same time, there's definitely people that deserve it. There's people that have probably lost out on opportunities because they got injured and they never made it to the NFL, who would have been in the NFL or the NBA or whatever it might be. So,
and it's nice to see the shoe companies ponying up some money for our top track athletes, right? Especially you see your top high school athletes, and obviously Marco Langen over at Nova getting what he So it's nice to see that they're getting a little piece of the pie too.
Give people a little bit of a blanket of security, right, so that they can then maybe have a better opportunity to pursue this after college, right? Maybe for some, this NIL deal and money, that situation opens up some opportunities for them to feel security and go chase after their dreams and not feel trapped in trying to get something done. So I definitely believe there's positives to it. It's just, once again, how whenever you have money, whenever you have more kind of opportunities for people to manipulate it, that's when there could be some issues. But I think with the right intentions and with the right people supporting it, it can really open up opportunities for people.
Definitely. All right. So I'm going to put you with the last question that we ask most of our guests, and I'm going to put it to you. You've been around the sport of track and field for a very long time. We know that for most of our athletes post-college, it is very difficult to have a pro career.
Yep.
If you could change something about our sport, wave a magic wand and make it so that could make our sport more popular, better for the casuals, bring in the money for our pro athletes and everything like that, what would you change?
Yeah. So I knew you'd ask this question, right? So
you did your homework.
Yeah, it's something I always think about hearing you guys talk about. From my standpoint, I actually, I think you would agree, just listening to Davern's one last week, is we're in a pretty healthy place. The popularity is there, and we're not the only sport struggling with people to view.
Correct.
As I had to go pick up pizza yesterday for the team and feed them at 7:30, or they become restless and might make bad decisions, right? So as I'm walking out, the hammer throw's going, and the guy in there, he hit the world standard for hammer. He's been training, he's been going to do that, and I'm walking out watching that, and what my answer was always going to be to you on this question is that one of the problems, and you talked a lot about it last week, is it is hard to broadcast this sport and gain an appreciation, but we're not alone in that. Go to a hockey game. That's a much different,
so much better live. Yes.
Than watching it on TV, right?
Yes.
So that's a real big challenge, is getting people in person to see this sport, because the sport is unbelievable. Yeah. Watch the triple jump. When somebody really good is triple jumping,
they fly through the air.
Poetry, right?
Yeah.
One of my goals is to see Ryan Krauser throw in person. It's poetry, or to see Mondo jump in person.
Exactly.
It's like seeing it on TV is great, but like me knowing the sport, I can appreciate. But the average person's like, oh, he just took a pole. I think my buddy,
when you're
in high school, but they don't realize.
Yeah, like I said, what got me going to the sport was going to Melrose, as a kid. In the garden, right? My dad brings me there, and I met Bill Cosby, right? That's who I met. We sat one row away from.
I met him at the Penn Relays many times. Yeah,
Penn Relays. He was always there at Penn Relays. He was a staple.
And watching pole vault right there in front, like they were literally, it was like they're going to jump in the stands at you. So I think like that's one of the things is these live events, getting people to them. But obviously, as we talked about the NIL, and hopefully that develops into something that can help more people go chase and pursue their dreams. I remember Chris Clark was graduating Cal U. He wanted to keep running and trying to figure out where he could go, and train full time, was a real challenge. So the more opportunities that are out there, in terms of popularity of the sport, we have the highest participation rates in high school. We have a lot of people that I think, buy into watching the sport. I went to a novice meet today to drop off some wind gauges to the timing company, and the place was packed. Okay,
That's good. It's always good to hear.
Parents are there, and people.
Our novice meet got postponed.
Yeah, they were doing it in the rain,
as they should.
I love
as
it.
They absolutely should.
So I think it's in a pretty healthy place, but getting people to see the best do it live is always always
Absolutely.
gives a new appreciation.
Now, I actually saw something on X that I thought was interesting. It was like we're not the only ones trying to make the sport more popular. They said, what if you put little cameras on the athletes facing out so that people could see what they see when they're
kind of
actually
like
racing?
NASCAR, where you have like the in-car vision,
or have a camera like on Mondo, as he's going up in the air.
I would throw up.
I was struggling with the same thing, right?
So you can see like how far he's like 20 feet is ridiculous to fall that far on your back.
It's when and once again, I think somebody said it. You're driving down the road and there's a bridge that says 14.6, and there's a whole bunch of people at a track meet this weekend that are going to be jumping up on top of that bridge.
It's crazy.
We talk about doing these types of things, but that would be such a fun thing. Just set up a pole vault mat and have people climb a ladder up to Mondo's record and tell them, okay, jump backwards. Fall backwards onto that mat. That is what Mondo
and then pop up right away and start celebrating.
Our pole vault coach does. Todd Curl. He's pretty well known in New Jersey. He helps run Beach Vault. Vertical adventures, and the people will come over and just watch it. So like, this is unbelievable, because when you see things live, you just gain appreciation.
That beach event is awesome.
Yeah, we had Matt Ludwig on the show, and he loves going there, and Marissa Kelsey too. They both were at trials, and they both talked about how much they enjoy the beach vault over at Seaside.
Yeah.
So, Coach, thank you so much for coming on. Finally, we got you. It was lots of fun, man.
I appreciate it. I appreciate what you guys are doing. I think stuff like this, D3 Glory Days, some of the other pods that are out there, but the work you're doing is also, getting people connected with the sport in other ways and telling the backstories. And that's also important, is to understand why people are doing it and how they got there. So,
and you're gonna have your bunch of athletes come and watch this and be like, we didn't know that about Coach, we didn't know, and they're gonna be quizzing you about the things that you talked about here.
Thank you. Great.
So once again, he is Coach Jayson Resch. He is the director of cross country and track and field over at Stockton University, and he's an incredible coach. If you're a young athlete over watching this at a high school and you are considering running at the next level, go give Coach a call. Talk to Coach, pick his brain. He's fantastic, and you might have a great opportunity to go run with one of the best coaches in the country. If you go over there, and I could say that, he probably won't say that about himself, but I can.
Yeah, because the assistant coaches I have are great. So
listen.
Well, I know the pedigree where he comes from his father. So the apple does not fall far in terms of.
But he's absolutely right. Like, you're only as good as your staff. Like people realize, like. True. There's the track team and then there's the coaching team. And I think you guys, you have to be a coaching team or else it's just never going to work. You just can't have fractions. Like, you have to be on the same, and has to have some tough talks. Like, I don't think that this kid, because especially when you share kids, I want this kid in this event. No, I want this kid in this event. But you have to come to some sort of communication and understanding. And that's so important in this sport.
Absolutely.
So we are once again talking in ovals. I'm Alex. He's Dave. You can find us every week. Typically Mondays, but we make our exceptions when we have our, pursued guests like Coach Resch over here. But we're usually on 9 o'clock, and you can catch us YouTube, Facebook, X. We appreciate everyone that watched tonight. Make sure you follow, subscribe, do all that good stuff. If you're listening to this via podcast form, we appreciate that as well. 5 stars is the only rating you're allowed to give. And make sure you drop a chat and spread this word of mouth. We will be back next week as we always are. So long.